Just be happy. Don't stop.
For the Happy Show, and I'm called Happy, H-A-P-I, Heavenly Anointed Presence innately. That's in me, that's in you also. For 3 counts of 3, for we can be on the same vibration, the same accord. We want to inhale God and exhale love. Are you ready? Here we go. Oh, yeah, nothing but light. Thank you for all those who just came in. I'm happy at the Happy Show. So you want to be a guest on our show? Give us a call at 415-573-5549. That's 415-573-5549. Come on the show and be on time. And guess what? For those who don't remember, we got our extremely special guest, Robert Valverde, in his final presentation of a world change, basically. So sit back and relax and enjoy yourself. And without any further delay, here we are, Robert Valverde. Robert, how are you?
Well, I'm very well today, and you, my good man,
fantastic.
You're smiling a lot
well,
today.
Thank you. I got some rest, would you believe? Yeah, glad to have you back here, Robert.
Yeah, thank you. Good to be back.
Nice
Good
and
to be
clear
back.
and shining and smooth.
Yeah, I got a little, my medical processes are finishing up.
Yeah, just
So I'm beginning to feel like a human being rather than a frog, something like that.
Well, you're looking good. I'm going to try your remedy. Maybe I can use all the brownie points I can get myself. Then, you
All
know.
right, okay.
Yeah, your final presentation, you know.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, well, I want to wrap things up. You know, we've had 5 or 6. I actually lose count how many we actually had. But I want to wrap it up and touch on all 5 subjects and introduce the 3 great virtues and make this a reminder of what I've said before. And so I just want to warn the audience, you're going to hear some repetition, which I think will be good for you, about consciousness and acceptance of who we are and, how shall I say, moving away from your egoic mind. So I'm going to just get started here. I'm going to do a little more reading than I usually do, but I'll interject when I feel like, well, I need to add something. So we're going to cover today the beloved youth, you remember that, then the blessed LGBTs, the ascent of the divine feminine, the 3 great virtues, and I'm going to end up with some powerful information about divine light and how it can bring you into clarity and purpose for your life. So let me begin here now, just reminding you, remember who you are not. Remember, you are not your sports, or we are not our favorite sports team, our work, our hair, our health or wealth, our education, our body, our abilities or disabilities, our weight or personality, or our ethnicity, our skin color, our religion, our sexual preference, and so on. Remember, that's just mind stuff. And that is not who we are. Those are the pieces of the condition of our life spiritual journey that we selected before we were born. So when we identify with these things that we think we are, we go unconscious. And that's the fatal error. And that's where the ego wants us to be. He wants us to be right in the middle of this list of things we are not. And let me read something here. The ego thrives on these life circumstances, our life situations. This mind stuff is its garden, its nest, its sanctuary, where it wants you and me to live. This is where it lives in fear of the present moment. So it wants to keep us in the past, hoping for a better future. So it is this situation that is the greatest universal cause of misery and unhappiness in the world. So I suggest, maybe urge is a better word, that you distance yourself from your egoic mind by simply raising your level of consciousness.
Just be happy, don't stop.
And I'm going to say that rather often because that is the key. That is the key. And if I may use a simple idiom, the frosting on the cake is divine light, and I will go into that more in detail at the end when we do our wrap-up. So, my beloved youth, you want to live in consciousness. Your soul is part of the Creator's soul, and never forget that. Now, you have many choices in life, and schooling sometimes can be a real heartache and problem for you. So some of you have dropped out of high school. Some of you will drop out of college. But what's most important is that you make sure you realize that that's your heart and soul speaking that has you drop out. You want to detach yourself from society's expectations, which are usually ego-driven by parents or peer pressure. So where do you go? What I am providing in these 7 talks is a place to go. The primary and most valuable place to go is into consciousness and to live, thereby to live out of your divine soul, your divinity. And so I'm just briefly going to drop this and cover this in greater detail later on in the show. Dropping out does not mean suicide. Dropping out of society, in my words, and I so encourage you to listen to me, does not mean dropping out of this lifetime. And I'll go into that in more detail a little bit later. So my beloved youth, you have two options actually. And I suggest either one because I'm suggesting that you detach from society's expectations, that you finish high school, you finish college, and guess what? What's waiting at...
Just be happy, don't stop.
A whole list of debts and the opportunity to work at 2 or 3 jobs at $5 to $10 an hour. And I just met a young man the other day. He's got to work 2 jobs in order to pay rent and to feed himself. So I suggest that you learn a skill, a vocation, house painter, welder, plumber, whatever strikes you as a way for you to be independent. You could start neighborhood freedom gardens, you know, fruits and vegetables. Maybe throw in a few chickens. Have a community barter system, self-help community system. Do you see what I'm saying? It's not that I'm suggesting that you do any one of these or all of these. These are places for you to go into consciousness and learn to live out of your divinity, not out of your egoic mind that has so captured society today. We have nothing but war after war after war. Also, you may really have your heart's desire set in a profession. You love school, you love learning. Maybe you want to be a teacher or a nurse or a doctor or a chiropractor, etc. And I just caution you. For example, if you find that your father is a doctor and he so wants you to be a doctor, be careful. If you live out of your ego and do what your father says and abandon your heart and soul, I promise you a miserable, unfulfilled life. So be careful who's putting the peer pressure on you. Is it your friends and relatives? Your parents by any chance? Because they want their ego-filled, oh, my son's a doctor. Oh, yes, and my son's a chiropractor. And they're very wealthy. So follow your heart, not the peer pressure. Whether you learn a skill as your life's vocation or you study for a profession, here is the bottom line. Do not be used by society. Use your ever-increasing consciousness and divinity to live who you really are. Your life is real, not your mind, not your ego. So my young, beloved young people, I leave you with that, and I'm going to move on to my next topic, which also includes you young people who are growing up and discovering your sexuality. And it might be disturbing for you to discover that you're not in the mainstream of what we call sexual preference. So I want to re-emphasize for you, my beloved ones, that your condition as gay, and I want to, if I may ask your permission, I want to use the word gay to cover all of the LGBTs, okay? So it just makes it simpler in my speaking. So you have taken on being gay in this lifetime as a spiritual practice for this lifetime, and please listen to that. Your gayness is a spiritual path that you have chosen before you were born that is for you to live out in your way. Now here's what's also very important from a darker side. You have been universally persecuted over the centuries, more than the prejudice against the Jews and racism, and especially against the blacks in the ethnic communities. You recall this from my former presentation. So you have a choice. You can live from your divinity, which empowers your spiritual path, or you can live out of your egoic mind and become unconscious and be the victim of misery created by your egoic mind. Remember, as I said before, you are created in the image and likeness of God. This is a quote from Genesis in the Bible, in the Old Testament. Your sexual preference is one of your life circumstances, your life situation. And the most powerful thing you can do is to accept that fact. Now I have a special treat for you, which I hope you can grasp and enjoy. I wrote out a declaration some time ago about my commitment to gayness as a way of celebrating your spiritual path. So I'm going to read that now. So this is the declaration. We declare, and in the we I include the fact that very likely, quite likely, I was gay in a former lifetime. And perhaps that's where I get my heart of empathy for what you are going through. We declare that we gays and lesbians were lovingly and intentionally created by the truly existing God. We, the two souls people, are the uniquely blessed children of God. We are male and female, the compassionate brothers and sisters of all humankind. We hold it as inviolable, as an inviolable truth, that we are divine in nature, ascending to human divinity, hand in hand with all men and women throughout the world. We were fashioned in the image and likeness of the Creator by noble design for a unique destiny to be personally discovered and privately fulfilled in service to the Creator God. Ultimately, we are deeply grateful to the Creator God for allowing us to experience this path of a rare spiritual gift as our destiny for this lifetime only, for the benefit of all of God's children. And we say this with an affirmation of so be it. Now I'm going to refer to an authority here, and I hope you get a good picture of this. Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. And I came across a section in here I'd like to read to you. I'm going to read now, so I'm quoting, "As you approach adulthood, uncertainty about your sexuality, followed by the realization that you are, quote unquote, different from others, may force you to disidentify from socially conditioned patterns of thought and behavior. This will automatically raise your level of consciousness above that of the unconscious majority. And as you know, 10% of the world's population is gay. Above this unconscious majority whose members unquestioningly take on board all inherited patterns. In that respect, being gay can be a help. Being an outsider to some extent, someone who does not fit in, quote unquote, with others or is rejected by them for whatever reason, makes life difficult, but it also places you at an advantage as far as enlightenment is concerned. It takes you out of unconsciousness almost by force." Now here's the most important part.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. Can you say that part about enlightenment again? Yes.
Sure.
Okay, thank you so much.
Being an outsider to some extent, someone who does not, quote unquote, fit in with others or is rejected by them for whatever reason, makes life difficult. But it also places you at an advantage as far as enlightenment is concerned. It takes you out of unconsciousness almost by force. Now this next section I want to read to you, I'm going to explain it in a little greater detail. On the other hand, if you then develop a sense of identity based on your gayness, you have escaped one trap only to fall into another. This simply means you would reject society's baggage about who you are, but then you take on a whole nother list of baggage. You will play roles in games dictated by a mental image you have of yourself as gay. You will become unconscious. You will become unreal. Underneath your ego mask, you will become very unhappy. If this happens to you, being gay will have become a hindrance. And that is, you will neglect living out of your divinity, out of your soul that is a part of the Creator God's soul. But you always get another chance, of course, because often enough, acute, serious unhappiness can be a great awakener to enlightenment. So this third section that I just read emphasizes what I have said before. Accept the fact that your gayness is your spiritual path, chosen before you were born. Accept it and live from your divinity by becoming more and more conscious every single day. And as you become more and more conscious, you will see so clearly that your gayness is truly simply a spiritual path to be embraced and to be lived out of through your divinity as a true child of God.
Just be happy, don't stop.
Now I'm going to refer to an authority here, and I hope you get a good picture of this. Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. And I came across a section in here I'd like to read to you. I'm going to read now, so I'm quoting. As you approach adulthood, uncertainty about your sexuality, followed by the realization that you are, quote unquote, different from others, may force you to disidentify from socially conditioned patterns of thought and behavior. This will automatically raise your level of consciousness above that of the unconscious majority. And as you know, 10% of the world's population is gay. Above this unconscious majority whose members unquestioningly take on board all inherited patterns. In that respect, being gay can be a help. Being an outsider to some extent, someone who does not fit in, quote unquote, with others or is rejected by them for whatever reason, makes life difficult, but it also places you at an advantage as far as enlightenment is concerned. It takes you out of unconsciousness almost by force. Now here's the most important part.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. Can you say that part about enlightenment again? Yes.
Sure.
Okay, thank you so much.
Being an outsider to some extent, someone who does not, quote unquote, fit in with others or is rejected by them for whatever reason, makes life difficult. But it also places you at an advantage as far as enlightenment is concerned. It takes you out of unconsciousness almost by force. Now this next section I want to read to you, I'm going to explain it in a little greater detail. On the other hand, if you then develop a sense of identity based on your gayness, you have escaped one trap only to fall into another. This simply means you would reject society's baggage about who you are, but then you take on a whole nother list of baggage. You will play roles in games dictated by a mental image you have of yourself as gay. You will become unconscious. You will become unreal. Underneath your ego mask, you will become very unhappy. If this happens to you, being gay will have become a hindrance. And that is, you will neglect living out of your divinity, out of your soul that is a part of the Creator God's soul. But you always get another chance, of course, because often enough, acute, serious unhappiness can be a great awakener to enlightenment. So this third section that I just read emphasizes what I have said before. Accept the fact that your gayness is your spiritual path chosen before you were born. Accept it and live from your divinity by becoming more and more conscious every single day. And as you become more and more conscious, you will see so clearly that your gayness is truly simply a spiritual path to be embraced and to be lived out of through your divinity as a true child of God. So let me finish up this section. Do not make a religion out of your sexual preference. By religion, I mean all the rules. Okay, how do I be a really good gay? How do I do this? How do I have to dress? How do I have to be? How do I have to walk? How do I have to do whatever else? With rules and beliefs that you think you need to follow is the trap. That will drive you into unconsciousness as much as you're following your egoic mind that truly wants you to be unconscious so it can control you. Accept your spiritual path. Strive each day to raise your level of consciousness. And if you want to truly benefit from what's available today, become a light giver. And I will cover this more in detail later. So that finishes the section on gayness. Now I'd like to revisit one of my most favorite topics, and that is the ascent of the divine feminine. And let me preface these comments by number one, please keep in mind, raising your level of consciousness is is already in process, a movement already existent in the world, and women are taking the leadership in becoming conscious. So my whole prayer for the divine feminine is, out of the stories of your abuse in the workplace, out of your sense of rage and humility and humbleness, you have the opportunity on your own to raise your level of consciousness and ascend back to your true feminine identity. You probably know, if you've done any study in history, that women, and I might add particularly lesbians, were chosen by tribes and cultures to be their leaders. And women were always leaders. And I had the most wonderful thought the other day I need to share. I got the true sense, the true, deep, profound sense in the center of my body that women are designed to lead and be the leaders, and we men are to do the work. And I was thrilled. I said, oh my goodness, that is what I truly believe. So I encourage you in the path of consciousness simply because even though you have been so abused for centuries, you have the opportunity, by increasing your level of consciousness, of staying in the light of your goodness. If you attempt to fight your darkness against the darkness of the political system, for example, you will go unconscious and you will lose the ascent of your divine feminine nature. So I'm calling on you simply to elevate your spiritual level, your spiritual consciousness. I use those words almost synonymously. And do not spend time, energy, fighting the darkness that has so abused you and surrounds you today. And if you are able to raise your level of consciousness, guess what will happen? The men you love in your life will be able to liberate their divine masculine, which they have abandoned in place of their ego. We are driven by our egos and we abuse women, and you do not want to go there and fight with your darkness against that darkness. You have a beautiful opportunity, a splendid opportunity to experience your own divine nature as divine feminine by simply raising your level of consciousness. Excuse me. And like I said, the frosting on the cake is to become a giver of divine light, which I'll go into in more detail later. So anyway, that is what I like to remind you of in this segment of our presentation. Do not forget, always remember, your feminine is divine, and you have every right to be fully expressed as the divine feminine in this world at this time. Okay, now my third topic, I'm going to go into the three great virtues. Actually, it's part 4, I guess. So I've written a lot of this out, and I'm going to read it quickly and perhaps ad lib. But what the three great virtues are: acceptance, humility, and gratitude. And the key to those three is acceptance. And what opens the door, if I may say that, what opens the door to the practice of these three great virtues is kindness. And I want to say that again. In all that I've said, proceed with kindness. If you're gay, if you're trapped in school, high school or college, if you're trapped in a profession you didn't really want to be in, proceed with kindness. Be accepting, humble, and grateful for the path you have chosen for this lifetime. So I have two objectives for this today. First of all, I will be reading most of what I have to say today. As I include an analysis of the three great virtues, I may speak extemporaneously. The second objective is to review, that is, pull together the main ideas of the previous 6 presentations. So let us begin with acceptance. Now, acceptance may sound like a passive position to take. On the contrary, active embracing of whatever comes to us, whatever shows up for us as we go through each day, is for us to accept. There are no accidents and there are no coincidences. Everything that shows up for us is in accordance with the natural flow of the universe, universal laws, and universal intelligence. This is the same intelligence that guides our bodily functions, such as heart rate and breathing, when we don't even know about it, as when we are asleep. Everything that happens to us or around us is articulated with significant purpose to aid us in fulfilling our spiritual destiny, the one we chose before we were born. In this sense, all things, thoughts, words, and deeds in which we participate are meant to be just as they are, perfect, with nothing left out. Saying this another way, whatever we experience, we have chosen ahead of time as the stepping stones of our life's purpose, our life's spiritual journey. You can see there is no sense to reject or deny what we have already chosen, right? Wouldn't that be a little bit of insanity? You're at a restaurant, you order up your food, the food gets delivered, and you say, I don't like that. That's pretty insane. So, by the way, the waitress in the restaurant or the waiter in the restaurant is the Creator God. So acceptance is the active embracing of what is, makes null and void the waste of time judging things as good or bad. Things are as they are. And as you have experienced, the mind, that is our ego, all of that garbage that we carry along, has a ready and dominant inclination to judge things as good or bad. And you know why? The ego has to be right. If it cannot be right, it is in pain. All is good. When we accept, there's nothing good or bad. The stream of life flows more evenly and allows us to make right-minded choices, incident by incident, one step at a time. Judgment, that is good or bad, blurs our vision and drives us unconscious. Some of our moments of greatest unhappiness, our misery, we create for ourselves by denying what is in judging good or bad and allowing your ego to dominate the situation. There is nothing good nor bad except the mind makes it so, the great Shakespeare wrote. Earlier I spoke of our life's conditions, situations, and we are not our life situations. Remember, we are not our ethnicity, we are not our gifts and talents, nor are we our disabilities. We are not our religion, nor are we our sexual preference. All of these are elements that make up the substance of our chosen spiritual journey, one lifetime after another. Remember, we are divine beings, the essential beingness included in the words human being. You've heard that before on previous shows. Our soul is a part of the Creator's soul, and the soul has taken on a particular assortment of circumstances we experience as our life's journey. If you like, we can say the concept of human is our life's circumstances. Finally, the failure to accept what is makes as much sense as denying the law of gravity. Now let's look at gratitude. Gratitude is the backbone of acceptance. If we can be grateful for everything we see that comes into our space, it is easy to accept and to be grateful. Since we chose what we have and what we get, it makes sense for us to be grateful. Grateful to the Creator. The Creator, with the assistance of our guardian angels, arranged for us to assemble our life circumstances for our spiritual journey. Be absolutely grateful to the Creator for all things, morning till night. And we do mean all things. Even those things that look bad or look good or don't immediately appeal to you. And I'm going to borrow a short story from Eckhart Tolle. A man wins a brand new car. And he loves that car. And his friends and neighbors say, "Wow, you are really lucky." And he says, "Yeah, maybe." So he's driving his car. He loves driving around town everywhere. And somebody broadsides him in an intersection, destroys his car, and puts him in hospital. Friends and neighbors come and say, "Oh, how unfortunate. Look at you now." "Oh, maybe," he says. Finally, while he's in the hospital, there's a massive earthquake, and his house falls into the sea. So then his friends and neighbors come to him and say, "Oh, aren't you lucky?" "Perhaps. You're in the hospital. You would have been killed if you were in your house." "Perhaps." So you see, we do not know. We cannot perceive the future strongly enough to know and to make judgments of, oh, this is good and this is bad. I don't like this, I don't like that, I can't accept this, I can't accept that. Now, let me tell you or share with you something I learned. Sometimes there are things I just can't accept. Yeah, sorry, can't accept that. So guess what I do? I accept the fact that I cannot accept the situation. So I still remain in acceptance, and I find in my own experience, after a while, yeah, I can accept that or that. So you see, some people say, like Eckhart Tolle says, if you really want to know what's good or bad, you will have to research the source of what you are talking about, what you're criticizing, all the way back to the core of the star where it was created. And I don't think we have the time or the brilliance to do that. So what? Bottom line, accept, accept, and accept. Living and expressing gratitude moment by moment creates divine light. Isn't that wonderful? We have the opportunity to do a 3-day training for $200 and become a light giver. And by being grateful every day for every single thing, we actually create the light of God. Now here's an interesting thing for you. I'm not going to go into detail about gratitude, but gratitude and acceptance in humility are like all part of one, like 3 sides to an equilateral triangle. If you're humble, it's easy to accept. If you're grateful, it is easy to accept. If you accept, it's easy to be grateful, and so on. So the key here, let me just say it again, the 3 great virtues, acceptance, humility, and gratitude. And the door that opens your access to practicing these 3 great virtues is kindness. Proceed with kindness. Even driving down the road, down the highway, is an opportunity for kindness. So finally, I want to talk to you now. See, make sure I have my stuff in order here. Thank you. I want to talk to you about the divine light. Now, according to my dear friend Happy, he urged me to add this in, and I'm doing it with great joy out of my love for anyone who considers suicide. I attempted suicide, and I'm very happy that I recovered. And I know how dark and dismal a situation can be that would cause any of you to attempt suicide. And I want to again go back to my beloved youth. You are in such turmoil these days. You don't know which way is up or down, what's good or bad. Dropping out does not mean attempting suicide. And particularly, and I don't want to scold you, but I do love you thoroughly, don't get any ideas about suicide given what I have presented to you. The way to raise your level of consciousness, which I say is your spirituality, and the opportunity to give divine light to your family, to your friends, to your food, to your animals, to all of those things and people you love in your life. Now here's another thing. If you have a friend or neighbor who is suicidal, and probably the neighborhood knows it, take that person, go with that person to a Divine Light Center to receive light. Now let me caution you. Our Divine Light Centers, our centers for spiritual elevation, are not places to get healed. But I promise you, after my attempted suicide, a friend of mine took me to a Divine Light Center. And guess what? I knew immediately when I started receiving light that this is a way out for me. This is a life's path I can follow, that I can overcome my unconsciousness and my suicidal tendencies. So I share that with you, and I share that with you with caution. I don't want you to take a suicidal friend to a center and expect they're going to be automatically, quickly healed, changed overnight, a totally different person. No. But their experience will give them an opportunity to see that there is far more to life, that there is actually a spiritual world that does control and that does create the materialism, the material world that we experience today. So having said that, my dear beloved young people, give yourself a chance. Go to a center, ask for help, and do not choose to drop out of this lifetime simply because you do not know where to go. Because I will scold you if I find you having survived a suicide attempt, and I will scold you for not following the suggestions that I have presented here today. So we have Divine Light Centers. You can do a 3-day training for $200 and give Divine Light, as I've mentioned before. The Divine Light will keep you in clarity and purpose. The Divine Light is so powerful, it will rejuvenate your spirit, mind, and body. And if you are suicidal, for example, here is an opportunity. Here is an opportunity for you to receive light, and then you judge for yourself if this is authentic for you, because it's not a philosophy or a theology.
Robert, I'm just wondering, to be able to commit suicide, of course happiness is just a matter of opinion, but is that something that someone think of because they're always thinking of themselves, or what about the people that they leave behind too, which seem to be more grieving afterwards because the person is gone basically, but they're grieving. So someone said it was a selfish kind of a thing to do. So, but yeah, that's a good thing to to talk about that, because someone say it doesn't end; it just begins when you leave, when you do that act. What do you have to spill on that?
Well, I'll just share my personal experience. I was writing screenplays at the time, and was writing one every year for 10 years, submitting them to contests, sometimes 5 or 6 each year, and I got absolutely no positive feedback.
No positive feedback.
So one morning at 3 o'clock, I said, that's it. I'm not going to put up with this anymore. I got to end this. At the time, I lived about a 15-minute walk from the Golden Gate Bridge, and I was going to go and jump off. Now, suicide is not funny, but I was in utter despair. I saw no future for myself because I was so committed. I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 days a week, and wrote for 2 hours before I rode my bicycle to school, to high school where I was teaching. There was no other way out. So what stopped me finally was the fact that I have 3 daughters, and I could not leave them without a father.
Yes.
As unconscious, angry, frustrated as I was still their father, and I knew they loved me. So I returned home around 5 in the morning and got ready for school and rode my bike to school. So if I had committed suicide, like I can sit here reasonably reflecting, yeah, it's selfish.
Yes.
Selfish. Everyone has hurt. Everyone has pain. Everyone has a condition, whether it's alcoholism, drugs, or whatever it is. We all have our stuff. And it's like quitting the team. Say I'm on a baseball team, and it's time for us to score. And I say, oh no, I'm out of here. Bye. Toss in my helmet, my bat, and walk through the stands and disappear. Just when my team needed me.
Yes.
That's like quitting for me, quitting on life. And my beloved young people, please take this to heart. If you're going to drop out, drop into my lap. Drop into consciousness and the divine light. I don't know, Happy, does that do it?
Yeah, it sounds quite on point, because you know, I hear a lot of people a lot of times talking about their condition and what it is and how they're affected by it. And I came to discover by listening to you even more so, all that conditions will increase once you concentrate on your mission. And that's raising a family and helping someone else other than yourself. And which, when you help someone else, you help yourself. It's really amazing.
Yeah, and what I mentioned before, that your egoic mind, if you live in your ego and not your divinity, you will live a miserable life. Now, guess who or what wants you to commit suicide? Guess. Your ego. Because your ego is afraid that if you survive and you become conscious, it will lose its power and disappear. The ego lives in anxiety and fear 24/7, and it wants to rule you and make you think that you are in fact the ego.
Wow, Robert, that's pretty powerful. Can I get 1 second to talk to the people there for one quick
Sure,
minute?
of course, yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Happy as the Happy Show, and we have Robert Valverde again, and his final message to you guys. You know, it's very empowering, you know, and I think, well, the word happiness is just to not think about me, but we, everybody, include. Yes, don't give up the ship, keep going, self-motivation, and yes, and then it brings you a good feeling inside. He talked about Sukyo Mahikari. If you ever get down to press, go down and learn about divine light. It's 1155 Juniper Cerro. Yes. And just go and find it for yourself and see what it is within yourself, and you have a brand new good feeling about life itself. Yes, we have Robert Valverde, a very extremely special guest today. And his final message, he's going to include some things from before, but just stick in there and listen to every word and know that the brand new you is coming through. Robert Valverde. Yeah, Robert.
So, just continuing on, When I became a divine light giver, it gave me the opportunity to contribute to other people. And there is such great joy in realizing that I can contribute in a profound way to people by revitalizing their spirit, mind, and body. That is their soul, part of the Creator God's soul, and their spiritual body, to enliven it and help them become conscious. And remember, my dear audience, remember, it's all about becoming conscious. Join the stream, the powerful stream that is floating around the earth, bringing us to consciousness, a consciousness we've never had before. And I declare that consciousness is our greatest mission, greatest personal mission, and I might even say responsibility of every single human being. That is, to become more and more conscious each day. And the people around you will have to also become more conscious, or they will leave you, or they will change. But your commitment to becoming conscious, that is for me more spiritual, more connected to the spiritual world, that you will bring about a true spiritual renaissance simply by using the tools that I've mentioned, the Eckhart Tolle books, and become a giver of divine light. It's very, very simple. You see, I'm not promising a new club. I'm not promising a new religious movement. I'm inviting you to get on to the stream, to the, how shall I say, the train that's moving forward toward consciousness, universal consciousness, and a universal spiritual renaissance. I invite you all to participate for your own goodness, so that you can see who you truly are, that you are in fact a divine being.
Yeah, Robert, that's so profoundly on time. You covered everything there, because we don't want to leave them out of this very powerful information. And you know, ladies and gentlemen, Robert Valverde once again, and he's his final message, a presentation to Renaissance of World Change. Yes, he talked about the sacred feminine, and he's connected it all together for you here and right now. And we're going to stream it all together so you can see. So give us a call at 415-573-5549. He's leaving this number too. Give him a call and talk about how he can help you to help yourself. Here he is, Robert Valverde. Robert?
So I want to get back to the youth. If you're in school and you find yourself agonizing, you don't want to study, you don't want to learn what's being taught, please examine yourself and come to the realization that school is not for you. Now, school may be for everyone else, but for you. And I ask you to examine your heart and soul about it, because since 99% of us live out of our ego, unfortunately, so much of what is taught in schools is ego-driven. So how much knowledge do you need to be the human being you are, to be the divine being that you are? So please do not put yourself down. How shall I say? Disdain yourself, because school is not for you. And, my dear youth, on the other hand, if you really feel vital, alive, and thrilled to be studying and learning what you're learning in school, and school is a great place for you, and you feel energized, great, continue. So I'm not saying for all of you to quit school. I'm simply saying those of you who live in anxiety about this course or that course or having to study, that is your ego dominating you. Can you get that? When you live from your divinity, there's no space for anxiety. or fear. You simply live moment by moment, having accepted your spiritual path and those things that you can do, those steps you can take to fulfill your destiny. And your destiny may not be to be a college professor. Your destiny may be to be a house painter. How wonderful! Independent, out of society's $10 to $15 an hour trap. You know, I have to laugh. Back in the Stalinist times, in Russia, there were the serfs. And the serfs labored and labored and labored so the wealthy could get wealthier. Does that sound like our country today? $10 to $15 an hour so that the wealthy can become wealthier? So I might ask the question and invite you to ask the question, do you want to become a serf? $10 to $15 an hour? Or would you rather be a house painter? How much fun it is to recreate the surface of a house, or fix somebody's plumbing, or do some welding, or fix somebody's car. How wonderful! Then you can set up your own shop. You can be your own boss. It takes work. It's a responsibility you may not be ready for, but I so encourage you to break away from society's ego-driven expectations of who you are as a young person.
You know, Robert, in self-motivation and work, nobody's never died from overwork. Many died from doubt, huh? That's so profound. Oh, my God. You know, if it wasn't for the society, we wouldn't be motivated to go into ourselves a little more and to make a contribution, a positive contribution to the world.
Right, right.
Great final points about that.
Well, I think the most important point, and I've said it before, and I want to leave you with this. I have presented in these presentations 2 powerful paths to follow to pull you out of ego, to pull you away from society's manipulation. Become familiar with Eckhart Tolle's work, The New Earth and the Power of Now. And don't just read them. They're not novels. They're not part-time reading. Study them, practice them, and you will be so amazed how you can turn your life around. There is no need for you to continue living in your ego and living misery, anxiety, and fear, because that's how the egoic mind dominates. Remember, you are not your mind. You are your soul. You are your divinity. And please, live from your divinity, not from your ego.
You know, it's always nice to be in some sunlight. Light seems to be the key, huh? Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, you know, Robert, I'm gonna thank you here. I guess we covered everything pretty much right now. I'm putting it all together. Any final things you'd like to say? Because we don't talk about happiness too much because people misinterpret it. They think it's something that someone does for you, opposed to like the light. You do it for yourself. What do you
right.
think?
Yeah, well, in reference to the light, I mean, we become givers of light.
Yes.
And what's significant about that is that, I just forgot the point.
Lights, just the light that it's like happiness.
Oh yeah, happiness,
Yes,
right, right.
We think money and other people will make us happy, but when we get light, we give to other people and we are feeling somewhat happy, giving
Right.
instead of receiving.
Yeah. So notice that your ego has you wired, in the future I'll be happy. Oh, I'll win the lottery. Oh, I'll meet that special person who's going to make me happy. So your ego carries you off into the future where you do not exist. It keeps you away from the present. And it's going to have you look at the past and say, oh, my past was so miserable.
And you're not present, yes.
Yeah. My father was an alcoholic and my mother divorced and blah, 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 blah. That's all ego talk. No one can make you happy. No one can make you happy. And I just had another thought I want to share.
Shit, please do.
I wanted to say earlier to our gay population, you've had wonderful parades about gay pride. And I want to just underscore this and perhaps give you a different way to look at that. No one can bestow upon you the self-pride that you deserve of yourself and for whom you are. That's why I suggest raising your level of consciousness and giving divine light. You do not need to expect that somebody, like your ego, is going to tell you, well, if we march enough, if we do enough signs, if we act this way, if we act that way, then people will honor you. That will never happen. No one can give us anything that we cannot have for ourselves. And I mean that we can do for ourselves. Nobody's going to make us happy. I need to find a way to be happy, to be less miserable. So I want to say that to the gay community. Of course, I'm not saying don't march, don't do what you do, but just notice there's another path. You deserve to be proud of who you are. We, the heterosexual 90% of the world's population, need to honor you and allow you the space to be proud of your spiritual journey as gays and lesbians. So please take that to heart. I'm truly speaking from my heart that we cannot bestow upon you the self-pride that you will have to create for yourself by raising your level of consciousness and giving divine light.
Wow, this seems like a very, very profound. You know, we came here individually with an individual thought, and that's going inside. You know, this is very exciting, Robert. I really, whoa, oh, that's okay. You know, I love you, man. I want you to come in. Let's come together and create something really more greater than this, even so more.
Well, if we can find it.
Oh, yes, we're going to do that. You know, ladies and gentlemen, that was Robert Valverde once again in his final message. But you know what? I'm going to get him back on the air again. I'm going to give him his direct contact so you can contact him if it's okay. It's okay with you, Robert?
Of course.
Yes. Get into the camera and tell them how they can contact you via phone number. And, of course, we have it.
Yeah, just call me or call my friend Happy. I'm at 415-497-3650. So give me a call, 415-497-3650. Robert Valverde. You can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. So look me up, give me a call, send me a text, tweet me, whatever else, and I'll get back to you, I promise.
Thanks, Robert. I appreciate that. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, there he is again. And Robert's a writer. He made the necklace, a lot of other things, too. He's keeping under his sleeve. But however, take advantage of looking into yourself and releasing all that. And of course, listening to Robert, I'm understanding the word ego means basically let go. Let go. Yes. Get your attitude of gratitude and appreciation for every moment. I think this guy laughs a lot all the time because he knows that things is going to change, okay? So give us a call at 415-573-5549 and give your best and be on time. And that's it. Robert, what do you think? We got to quit. We got to go.
Yeah, we got to go. I hate it, but we got to go.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to see you. Bye.
Just be happy. Don't stop. Why not? Just be happy. Don't stop.